Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome General Manager, Middleware Business Unit, Mike Peach.
All right, welcome to Dev Nation and Summit. Yeah! I see a lot of developers out there. I can tell by the t-shirts. It's awesome to have you guys here in San Francisco. This has got to be our biggest developer event ever. My hometown. Great to be here. Great to be here with all of you. Middleware is the lifeblood of enterprise software development. It's the stuff we use every day to build our apps faster, to deliver higher quality, to make stuff that's more easily changeable for the future. Last year at Summit, we introduced the idea of enlightened innovation, a simple idea that pervades everything we do in JBoss Middleware. Simply put, it's to allow you, to enable you to innovate faster in a smarter way. Last September, at Java 1, we introduced an exciting new development in middleware, XPaaS. And it's not even just about middleware anymore. It's about the marriage of middleware and the cloud. It's about the future of developing enterprise software using the tools, the frameworks, the practices you already know and love of enterprise software development with traditional middleware, but in the newly empowered world of the cloud. I don't want to steal any more thunder about that. In the next 60 minutes or so, you guys are going to see some exciting examples of how that gets used today, as well as hear a little bit more about our vision, our strategy, and our roadmap for these developments going forward. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Senior Vice President of Application Platform Products, and my boss, Craig Muzilla, who's going to take you through a little bit more depth about our vision and strategy. Craig?
Welcome to Red Hat Summit and Dev Nation. It's great to be here in San Francisco. Every year, we have a tradition at Red Hat to begin the show. The first keynote is to start with middleware. And why do we start with middleware? Because everything that happens in IT, everything that happens in software begins with the developer. And it's all about helping the app builders build applications. If you look at the history of software and IT and how it's used in businesses, look 12 years ago, software was still primarily a tool to help automate the back end, the back office, processes like that, like finance, like HR. But over the last 10 years, software in many cases has become the business. The applications are the business, and without the applications, the business can no longer exist. Take a look at the New York Stock Exchange. They use Red Hat technology to build their risk management systems and their trading systems. Look at Intuit. They have moved to become a SaaS player, a software as a service player. They're using Red Hat technology to build those SaaS services, bill paying services. Even look at brick and mortar companies like Best Buy. They're using Red Hat technology to build their applications, their entire e-commerce app, and how it ties back to the stores. Without these applications, one could argue that those businesses couldn't exist. It's not just about the back end, but the software is becoming the business. And so now, the challenge for any business is how to better develop and deploy applications. But this is a difficult task. How do you deploy applications when everything is changing so fast? How do you become better at it? Look at some of this data from IDC. In the last 10 years, there's been a 1,700% increase in the number of web applications and websites in the marketplace. There's been a 23,000% increase in the number of broadband internet use and mobile users using smartphones. And IT has changed as well. This year alone, 65% of companies out there report that they will be using platform as a service to build and deploy some of their applications. Customer demands are also changing. Customer expectations have risen. So now a customer expects a lot, a user of these applications expects a lot more. They expect their application to be immediate, get that information and updates to the process to them immediately, wherever they are. They expect their applications to be much more pervasive. Accessing an app through a web browser is not sufficient. Now it has to have a mobile footprint, and increasingly, a footprint in embedded systems, whether that's the home, the car, or in business. And they expect their applications to be much more aware, smart. They expect their applications to understand something about them, the user, and proactively make recommendations before they even ask. Applications have to deal with the changes in the technology. Now, every application that's built will be built for cloud and around cloud, will be built for mobile and the Internet of Things, and it'll also be built around big data and leveraging big data. So we've seen that applications have become much more important. The rate of change is increasing in the marketplace. Customer expectations have increased, and this whole time, the whole underlying infrastructure has changed. So who's going to build these applications? We don't think it's going to be just a traditional developer any longer. We think there's a new type of app builder, a modern app builder, that's going to be responsible for building these applications as well as deploying these applications. So who is this modern app builder guy? The modern app builder is a variety of people with myriad skills and coming from different backgrounds. It is the traditional programmer, the Java programmer, the Ruby programmer, programmers of other languages that are building back-end services and building APIs. It's a mobile developer building a footprint on an iPhone or an Android. And increasingly, and we think this is one of the biggest changes, it's increasingly the business users themselves that are providing application logic, changing application logic, and changing application workflows and processes. Now, the question is, how do you address, what kind of system is required to address this diverse set of app builders and users? What kind of system allows them to have access to tools that help them build the applications, and what kind of system allows them to actually take part in the DevOps movement and deploy these applications as well? We think what is required is something called the Modern Application Development Platform, the Modern Dev Platform. And this brings together the concepts of platform as a service, together with a rich breadth of middleware capabilities that are required to build true enterprise applications, whether that's integration technology, messaging technology, business process management technology. And this is exactly what we are doing at Red Hat. We are building the next generation of application platforms, and we call it XPaaS. XPaaS brings together the DevOps capabilities within platform as a service within OpenShift, married with the richness and the breadth of the JBoss portfolio. Together, these two together create this next generation experience and will allow companies and the app builder to more effectively and efficiently build applications into the future. And just to show you how it's done, I'd like to introduce a very good friend and colleague, Dr. Mark Little, who heads up engineering for Red Hat Middleware.
Thanks, Craig. So what does this mean for JBoss products and projects so that we can deliver on this vision that we've just heard from Craig? Well, for a start, everything has to be open. That's open standards and obviously open source. Red Hat and JBoss has a great track record of doing everything in the open and working with very standards bodies like W3C, OASIS, IETF, and others to ensure that we work with our communities, with our customers, to get open standards driven into the enterprise. Now, many of the things that we're going to see in the demo and things that I'm going to talk about in the next few slides are based on existing standards today, and that's very, very critical. But as we evolve XPaaS, as we look to the next generation of problems that we need to solve, there won't be standards yet. And we'll work with partners and with our communities to create those standards, possibly even creating new standards organizations if necessary. But again, it'll all be done in the open. That's our track record, and that's what we're going to continue to do. Customers expect this from us. We don't want to go back 15, 20 years to when vendor lock-in was, was the de facto. So why does open source matter for this platform? Well, hopefully I'm preaching to the choir here, but open source has been at the heart of many of the technological waves that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years. It doesn't matter if you look at cloud with Linux, JBoss with Java EE, Android with mobile, and MySQL with the database. You don't have to look very far to see the footprints of open source. And hopefully most of the people here are either, well, you're all hopefully using open source or involved with open source communities, but you'll understand why open source is critical. You get to work with like-minded individuals, people that have similar problems. You get to collaborate, vet your ideas, contribute code, evolve products and projects in directions that maybe originally weren't the intended directions for them. But you get to stand on the shoulders and hand in hand with many, many other people. This is the power of the community. And it's core, again, to what Red Hat and JBoss have been doing over the years. And it's certainly core to what we're going to be doing in the future. So everything that you will see and hear from us today, it's based on open source. And in the future, it's going to continue to be open source. That's not going to change. That's our heart. So what does this platform look like? Well, it has to be lightweight with a minimal footprint. We've heard that it has to be built for cloud, but it has to be built with mobile and Internet of Things in mind as well, because we've spoken about this before in a couple of Red Hat summits in the past. Cloud at the moment, it's very server generated, very, very big iron. We don't think that that's the way it will continue. Ubiquitous computing is here. It's a reality. There are many, many more processors out there than there are in back-end servers. We want to tap into that. Developers want to tap into that. Industry wants to tap into that. They may not really understand how at this point, but it's going to happen, and we want to be there as a driving force. So it needs to be lightweight so it can be deployed onto a range of different devices. It needs to be dynamic, adaptable, autonomous, self-healing in a way. We don't want an environment where every time a machine goes down or a machine becomes overloaded or the network goes down, you call out a sysadmin, because that just doesn't scale. It needs to be able to do this itself, more or less. And in many ways, this platform is going to be similar to an organism as it evolves. Many of you may hopefully have heard of Skynet. I'm not suggesting we're going to go that far, but I hear James Cameron is making a sequel, so maybe Red Hat will be involved. So how are we going to deliver this? Well, there's a number of products and projects that we're going to be talking about and see demoed in a few minutes. One of them at the heart of what we're doing is called Fuse Fabric 8. And if you were here at DevNation yesterday, you would have heard from the likes of James Strachan and Rob Davies and others about Fabric 8 and how it provides some of these capabilities, able to dynamically deploy different containers to different machines that have no infrastructure installed on them at this point. So you can deploy Tomcat, Wildfly, Carafe, and now even Docker images. And I mentioned Wildfly. That's the re-architecture of our application server project, so it's at the heart of EAP. That gives us this minimal footprint as well, because it can run on very, very constrained devices. I think some of you may have seen our keynote a few years ago where we were running it on these plug computers. We can run it on a number of Raspberry Pis as well. So there's more work to be done, though. We're not quite there for everything, this vision that we want. It will take time to evolve. Another area that's going to be very, very important, because it's been important for, well, since as long as computing has been around, is data. Data is king. We don't just develop applications because we like to develop applications. No, we're using the data that we get from our customers to better provision enterprise applications for them. We're data mining. So data is going to be king. It is king, and it's going to continue to be king. And with Internet of Things, the amount of data that's being generated today is significantly more than it ever has been in the past. So data management, data virtualization, storing data at scale is critical. And we've got our data virtualization product. We've also got the JBoss Data Grid or the InfiniSpan project, if you use that. And they're going to be part and parcel of what we do with XPaaS. So there are a number of other products that are relevant to XPaaS today. One of which is the Fuse family. So SOA, service-oriented architecture, that's it's a wave that's kind of been around for a while, and cloud has pretty much been using SOA, whether people want to admit it or not. Platform as a service, software as a service. The clue's in the name. We're doing services, and that's what SOA is about: disparate, autonomous, loosely coupled. So we believe that SOA should be core to this to the XPaaS platform as well, which is why Fuse is at the core of XPaaS. So we're building on Fuse. Fuse 6.1 was released this morning. Fuse has Camel in it, which is Camel and Service Mix, or ESB. We've got AMQ, which is our high-performance, scalable messaging platform, which supports AMQP, the Oasis standard that we've been working with, and MQTT for Internet of Things, and a number of other protocols. And of course, we've also got Fuse Service Works, which replaced our SOA platform. We've got SwitchYard for service definition and interconnect, and other efforts like SOA governance, where we're working in Oasis on the SOA governance standard SRAMP. Now, once you have services, you need a way of tying them together into business activities or tasks. And at this point, we're no longer talking about service developers, but business analysts, as Craig mentioned earlier. And that requires a very different approach with very different tools. These are the new app builders, or at least they're some of the new app builders. And they're not interested in coding in Java interfaces or classes. They don't want to know about class cast exceptions or think about RPCs or message passing or JPA or JTA. And we've just released our new BPM suite, which addresses this group of individuals. It's based on years of development with our upstream projects like Drools and JBPM, but also critically the acquisition of Polymeter technology that we did 18 months ago. And if you haven't seen this, you can get it now, but you'll also see it demoed in a few minutes' time. Now, we could deploy these individual services as individual products up onto the cloud and be done with it. And I know that some of our competitors will do that. But that misses the key point here, which is many of these groups of developers or business analysts are going to want to use these services that I've mentioned earlier, or ones that will be coming, in different ways. They want to combine them. They'll want to create complex apps that maybe use data as a service, BPM as a service, integration as a service together. So XPaaS to us isn't just it's not just a marketing buzzword. It actually means something a lot more. It means integration of these services together so that they behave efficiently together, that they're first-class citizens together in the same platform. So we're working with a number of other groups throughout Red Hat to ensure that the whole stack, whether it's running on OpenShift and OpenStack and the JBoss middleware stack, whether it's BPM as a service or integration as a service, etc., that these work well together and that they work under the XPaaS effort. Okay, so what I've mentioned so far is pretty much here today, but what about the future? I mentioned that we're going to be adding new products and projects into XPaaS as we go forward. It's going to evolve. It's going to look different in 5, 10 years' time. It looks different now to what it was 12 months ago when we actually announced it. What kind of problems are we going to try and solve? How do the applications that we need to support change? What frameworks or stacks will we need to be enhancing or developing? Now, I haven't got a crystal ball, but I'm going to try and give you an indication of sort of the things that we're thinking about. So firstly, EAP and Java EE are core to everything we do today. Java EE is the premier enterprise middleware stack for a very good reason, mass adoption. And EAP is the premier implementation of that. But they're not necessarily great for certain types of new problems that we're seeing coming up. And we're starting to see new types of applications being developed with new frameworks like Node.js. Now, we mentioned this in the past, but these new frameworks don't just spring into life fully formed and have absolutely everything that you might need as you develop enterprise capabilities or enterprise applications with them. They have holes in them. And they don't necessarily have bulletproof transactions or security or messaging. So we're working with those communities because we want to evolve. We want to evolve them. We want to improve them. And if you were at some of our keynotes in the past, you may have heard us talk about something like JBoss Everywhere, which is where we take our mature projects and products that we have been working on for many, many years and try and make sure they work well in these new environments. Now, Node.js is, it's a great framework. As I said, it does have some holes. Like it or not, it's JavaScript based. Now, for us, this problem space, which is often characterized as reactive, event-driven, asynchronous, our project in that space is something called Vertex. Now, if you haven't looked at it, I think you should go out and have a look at it. If you know Node.js, you should see many things that are familiar in Vertex, but it's a polyglot platform. It doesn't just target JavaScript. So you can write Node.js-like applications in Java, in JRuby, in Clojure, and in JavaScript. It's definitely next generation. We're working in the upstream community and with a number of developers that are Red Hat employees to fill in these holes that we see with Node.js and similar other products and projects. And it's going to be one of our solutions for the next generation problem space that we want to solve, and also driving it into XPaaS. Another problem area that Craig touched on earlier is Internet of Things or ubiquitous computing. It is here today. Again, it's something we've touched on over the last few years. We're working with partners like ARM to empower developers of Internet of Things devices, like these little embed boards here, or Raspberry Pis, or even Android phones, so that developers can write their enterprise applications so that their enterprise applications may be run locally on the devices, or if not, because they're too constrained, like these things here, that they can interface with back office systems written in Java or Clojure or maybe even Vertex. So this is, in some ways, also a kind of a JBoss Everywhere, but we believe that working with the likes of ARM and others, that this allows developers to not have to worry about the infrastructure because we will provide it, working with you guys hopefully as well, and then they can concentrate on the applications. Okay, so before I pass off to Burr Sutter, who will lead you through a demo of XPaaS technologies, which I know is why you guys are really here, I just want to remind everybody that we have many great developer sessions going on both at Summit and at DevNation. If you haven't got a DevNation pass yet, you can buy one. You don't need to get a pass to get a flavor of DevNation. There's a track that we're running, which is DevNation and Summit together, and you can go and see that for free. Tomorrow, we're also running a BOF with ARM, where you can come along and play with these Internet of Things devices, the embed boards. And on Wednesday, there's, I think it's like a 6-hour hackathon that we're running. We're going to be looking at Raspberry Pis, more embed stuff, and a lot of other things, so not necessarily just focused on middleware. If you go to either of those, I believe there's going to be some freebies given away to people who turn up and do something interesting with the devices. And there may also be some freebies given away in this demo. OK, so without further delay, I'd like to pass this over to Burr.
All right, had to double check a few things there. So what we're going to do now is going to be very exciting for those of us here on stage. Maybe not as exciting for you guys. We'll have to find out how it goes. But we're going to have some fun, and that's for sure, because we're going to attempt to demonstrate for you a whole lot of things you just heard about. But one thing I want to do is kind of take you a little bit back in time so you kind of know where we've been and where we're trying to go to with this. We, just a few years ago, actually showed you a newly re-architected application server and another technology, a data grid technology called InfiniSpan, that we actually ran in our demo on a plug computer the size of this, a computer that you could hold in your hand. And some people were like, why are you doing that? And it's because we wanted to show you that we could run things in an ultra-lightweight, ultra-constrained environment, and that would allow us to run in a higher density cloud. So we took that architecture, we then took that application server and that data grid technology, and of course they've become products and supported for many of you here in the audience. And then we then take that and we run yet another demonstration up at OpenShift Online just 2 years ago, where we actually had people in the audience download a mobile application we created using HTML5 hybrid mobile application that you then put transactions into that application server hosted at OpenShift Online. And so that kind of culminated last year where we said, OK, great, we did those things. Now, how can we make it even better? Well, we had a whole bunch of people in the audience just last year actually pound in auction item, basically auction bids into a real-time web application, mobile web application we created. And it actually was running at OpenShift, auto-scaling based on the load you guys applied to it, and also demonstrating the capability of an open hybrid cloud. We actually had a Vertex instance and a Torquebox and Immutant working between EC2 at Amazon and OpenShift Online simultaneously. And each transaction you guys pushed into the system showed up in that dashboard. So we had a lot of fun with that, obviously. So we also showed you how we built mobile applications and all kinds of stuff. So we thought, well, how can we top that? Well, it's going to be kind of challenging, isn't it? So we decided to go a little bit crazier. So let's walk you through with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take full advantage of OpenStack. Of course, OpenStack is absolutely happening within our industry, and it allows you to build an infrastructure as a service cloud pretty much anywhere you want. So we actually used OpenShift to build a cloud on stage out of cheap commodity hardware, some borrowed laptops, and some discards that we had around the office. And I'm not kidding you. I can show you a picture of boxes of discarded laptops I received. Like, oh, marketing's not using it anymore. You take it. OK, so we're going to take full advantage of OpenStack, and we're going to build out an infrastructure as a service cloud. And then we're going to leverage OpenShift. So with OpenShift, we can take those hardware components, which become virtual machines, split them up even finer into actual OpenShift gears or containers. And so with OpenShift, it now becomes something available for a developer to use. So what was generic compute capacity, CPU, memory, networking, et cetera, is now something a developer can apply and use. And then we're going to take full advantage of one of the JBoss middleware services. When we talk about XPaaS, we're talking about that multiplier, right? Think of it as a force multiplier. And what's going to happen is with Fuse, we're going to basically say, we're going to integrate, in this case, from a Twitter environment. So we're going to build an integration service, integration platform as a service. We're going to integrate from a Twitter environment, grabbing tweets out of the Twitterverse. And we're going to basically see if there's a Salesforce record which matches that Twitter ID. And if, in fact, it does find a match, it might mean that there's a customer talking about us, because that's our CRM system. So it could be we're doing some social media monitoring. We're going to see if anyone's mentioning certain keywords, certain brands in the Twitter stream. In this case, it's going to be very simple. And we're going to see if there's a Salesforce ID. And if so, we're going to start a business process based on that. So again, we got our cloud sitting here on stage. We're going to run everything on it, set it all up for you. We're going to reach out to Twitter, see if we can find certain tweets. We're going to reach out to Salesforce, see if there's a match. And then we're going to kick off a business process here on stage as well, also running here in this cheap set of laptops that we have sitting here behind me. And then we're going to drive some dashboards. You're going to see those dashboards. And the final step, if all this works, is we're going to send a text message to your phone. And we're going to send it first to my phone. And at that point, we'll know if the system works end to end. So you might be thinking at this moment, what could go wrong? Well, we don't have a safety net. We're just going to go for it. And hopefully you guys have, understand the energy and enthusiasm we have for this, because it's actually going to be a lot of fun. So here we go. So first up the bat is a fellow named Chris Alfonso. So Chris joins us from the OpenShift team. He's the key guy working with the OpenShift teams and actually making sure we have all the appropriate infrastructure to run OpenShift on OpenStack. So he's been working on that integration, demonstrating that capability. And he's really been one of the key guys behind helping us build out this little data center here on stage. So Chris, could you tell us a little bit about OpenStack and OpenShift?
I think you're being a little generous when you call this a data center, but this is our private cloud. And we've done a little bit of pre-work here. We've installed Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform on each of these laptops over here. And then we've created several virtual machines, 3 to be exact. 1 is running an OpenShift broker, and 2 are running OpenShift nodes. Now, I've got 2 screens up here. One on the right is the OpenStack dashboard. The one on the right is the OpenShift dashboard. Now, I'm going to zoom in here so you can kind of see what's going on here. And as this demo proceeds, I want to make sure that you guys can see a lot of the different working components going on, because there's a lot to track, and I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. But there's a lot of pieces and parts going on here. So I've got 2 of these laptops currently configured and set up as hypervisors in our OpenStack cluster. And we'll continue to horizontally scale the infrastructure as we go on through this demo. On the right-hand side here, I've created a small animation here. And what each one of these large light blue circles represent is an OpenShift gear profile that matches each of these laptops. So we're going to, as we bring another laptop online, we're going to provision several virtual machines on them, and then we're going to configure those virtual machines to be additional OpenShift node gears. Or gear profiles, rather. And so each of the small gray circles attached to the large light blue circles represent capacity that we've pre-configured and made slots for each of the Fuse components, as Burr mentioned, with all the BPM containers that are going to be created. As Kevin and Burr create Fuse components, those are actually going to call REST APIs in OpenShift to create additional applications. And you're going to see those gray circles kind of pulsate and animate and turn dark blue. And that represents an application being created. So as we go through this demo, I will kind of make sure to focus and blow that up for you to see a little bit so you can see how our infrastructure is changing over time. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of how this was set up, because you can spend a lot of time setting up infrastructure. You have to set up network policies. You've got to set up firewall rules. You've got to make sure that ports can connect to one another. You've got to create instances, mount storage, on and on and on. And typically, this is a really convoluted process. Typically, it has a lot of people and manpower involved. And what I've actually done is used a tool called Heat. It's one of the tools in the set of OpenStack tools. And I fed it ASCII text files, or Heat templates, for Heat to interpret and fire off a whole orchestration process to automatically set up infrastructure. And we're going to continue using this through the demo to update what we call a Heat stack. And I'll give you a quick view of what that actually means in terms of a visualization. So I'll go ahead and zoom in here so you can kind of see this. And we're going to see this infrastructure graph build out over time through this demo. It's going to get really convoluted. I mean, it's already a lot to follow, so don't worry about the specifics too much. But what it does demonstrate is that there are a lot of infrastructure components needed to make a working software solution.
I think that's a critical point. So help me understand something, though. How does Heat relate to, let's say, Puppet or Chef?
OK, so the differentiator there is that Heat is an orchestration tool for infrastructure. There's a handoff piece there that is very nice, in which you can plug in really any configuration management solution you'd like to. But the delineation there is infrastructure orchestration versus configuration management of running instances.
OK. And I really appreciate the point you made about there's a ton of actual other little steps that go involved in that. And sometimes as a middleware developer like myself, you don't really appreciate all that goes on. But I have a friend who just told me a story, and I want to relate it to you guys, because I think some of you might appreciate this. So I have a friend who's actually an enterprise architect. I just had this conversation last week. And he works for a very large international brand. And I asked him, I said, well, what is one of the bigger problems that you have? You know, he's a brilliant developer himself. He said, well, we can knock out new services, building out new services instantly. It's not that hard for us to actually do the development. But to get a new virtual machine stood up, a virtual machine, it takes 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And that's just all downtime as they have to wait on it. And it's several $1,000s in the charge back. He goes, I don't care about the money side of it. I just don't want to wait 3 weeks to get yet one more VM stood up. That's incredibly, and I recognize there's certainly challenges with the various policies and corporate governance and things like that. But I really like what you see here is it looks like you already have 2 servers in our configuration in our environment. 2 servers, and there's already some OpenShift already pre-established.
That's right. I'll go over to the Instances tab here so you can actually see there are 3 virtual machines running, and give you a closer view on that. 1 is a broker, and 2 are OpenShift nodes. That's all working together right now to provide you essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 application spaces.
Awesome. So how hard would it be for us to extend this environment? Does it take us 3 weeks for you to add a new server?
No. So it's probably going to take me about 2 minutes to add an existing compute server to the OpenShift fabric. It probably takes, a couple minutes. OK, so we have, basically what we're talking about here is we have our 3 machines. These are the nodes in our cluster, basically what you've been working on. So we have 1, 2, and 3. You can add the 3rd one just in about 2 minutes. Sure.
All right, so that sounds like entirely too easy, and you guys might think we're kind of faking this, and that's, God honest, not happening here. We're not faking anything. So I want to challenge you with something, Chris. Let's add a fourth machine to the mix. So we actually have a fellow named here, Dan Rades, wherever he went. Oh, he's back here. So Dan Rades has been one of the key guys on the OpenStack team, helping us put all this together. And he literally went around Red Hat and specifically said, can I borrow your laptop? And so he actually brought us a whole new laptop. So what do you got for us, Dan?
Well, we got some brand new hardware here. When you get brand new hardware, you need to plug it into your data center, right? So you're going to plug it in, give it power. You're going to give it network. First thing you need to do is provision it, right? Well, with Red Hat OpenStack platform, we have provisioning included in it. And part of that provisioning is that it makes it very easy and autonomous to take a piece of hardware and add it to an OpenStack cluster. So what I've done in the provisioning system that's over on that end over there is put a record in there that's expecting this laptop to check in. So I'm going to boot this laptop here, and what it's going to do is pixie boot off of the provisioning infrastructure. It'll then install Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It will install the OpenStack packages that are necessary for this laptop to join into our data center here. And then I'll be able to hand it right back over to Chris, and Chris will be able to run the same 2-minute process on this laptop to then expand OpenShift and the whole platform that's running on top of OpenStack onto this piece of hardware here. So you'll see that we can expand horizontally, quick and easy, with the provisioning that's included in OpenStack platform.
You've not seen a data center like this one before, I suspect. Normally there's like racks and things of that nature, but really we just set it up here on stage today. We have our switch right here, and that's basically my home Wi-Fi router I stole out of the environment to make sure we had a Wi-Fi for this as well. So you're basically booting up this laptop. Did we have to actually pay like the extra fees to get like the bloatware and Windows removed from it?
I don't know. That's your end of the spectrum taking care of the money.
Yeah, okay. But it looks like it's going to basically join right up, and if that works out well, you know, Chris, you should be able to throw it right in.
Okay, so that was a lot of stuff that you guys just went over. So let me make sure I got all the pieces. Number one is you asked me to bring on our third server, which is not what Dan plugged in. That's our fourth.
Yeah, that's number 4. It looks like
the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add compute 3, which I've done here, and now you see it here.
Okay.
I've added that. Now I'm going to use heat. I'm going to quickly fire off a stack update, expand the OpenShift infrastructure, create some VMs, hand it off to config management, the installation process, et cetera. That's going to be ready for you guys to deploy applications to. And in about, what, 7 minutes, 6, 7 minutes?
Yeah, it'll take maybe 7 or 8 minutes the way we have things.
Then we'll add
here
that.
For this machine to be ready to be added to the cluster.
Perfect. One of the things that is going to happen as we go through that whole process is we're going to see more of these compute profiles come online. So we're going to see, we have 1 and 2 there, we're going to see 3 appear, then we're going to see 4 appear, and okay, so 3 is now online. As Kevin and you create fuse containers, you're going to see more of those gray circles pulsate into dark blue.
Okay, well, let's let that run. So it looks like it actually came into the system, so that's fantastic. So let's show you something else now. So we've been building out, our hardware environment here. We've been basically setting our infrastructure as a service, and Chris, with our laptops, is going to help us compete with Amazon in our private cloud. What do you guys think? We're going to get it configured and set up here. So he's setting up the private cloud, but I now want to take you into the XPaaS, specifically the middleware services now sit on top of that backbone. So we talk about XPaaS here, and I'm just showing you a web page we just set up there. You guys probably already know that we've actually had application servers as a service, right, out there in the public cloud, available at OpenShift Online, but also available with OpenShift Enterprise on-premise. So application container services, but we just added integration services with Fuse, and we just added business processes as well. So you're going to see some of this all throughout this presentation. So let me actually show you the Fuse Management Console. And actually, one other thing I want to show you is the OpenShift Enterprise Console. So once Chris gets all that set up for me, I now, as a developer, a middleware developer, can actually stand up new instances on my own. I don't actually need any other person in operations, no one who says, well, it'll take 3 weeks to start that up. I can come into this management console and say, I want a new Java EE application server. So we were the first organization to actually bring you a Java EE6 certified application server, available in the public cloud at OpenShift Online, also available to you on-premise with OpenShift Enterprise. So if I'm a Java developer, I can click the button and do a git push and actually instantiate my brand new services out inside the cloud, in this case, the private cloud. I could bring up a new set of Ruby services. I could bring up a new set of PHP services. I could bring up a new set of Perl services. I can even run a Jenkins server. So all of this capability is available to me right here at the developer desktop. I can do this for myself. It's developer self-service. That enables better developer agility, developer productivity. But we want to go one up from this. This is a great way to do one more service. We're going to take you from the one to the many. So I'm going to show you the Fuse Management Console now. And the idea behind Fuse Fabric is we can launch many services simultaneously. So let me go ahead and get that started. I'm going to hit the Create button here. And I'm going to type in, let me shrink this screen down a little bit so we can see things a little bit better. All right, very good. I'm going to type in, I want a Twitter service. OK, and let me get it in the right location. Make sure we're all set up here. And I need to pick a profile. So when I pick this profile, all right, so that's our code and our configuration. I'm going to hit Create and Start Container. So at this moment, I am actually starting a brand new gear inside the OpenShift context, inside the virtual machines established by OpenStack. So think of the hardware, right? So we have a base set of hardware, 2 virtual machines per piece of hardware. We have 2 gears, 2 containers per virtual machine, so 4 in total across those things. And it's going to basically set that up. So it's not just, think about it like this. It's not just setting up the operating system. It's also establishing, is there JVM there? Because we need a Java virtual machine for this particular Fuse component. These are basically camel routes, and it requires a Java virtual machine. In addition to the Java virtual machine, it's also downloading and installing and configuring, basically unpacking and configuring Fuse Fabric itself. So Fuse is now being installed there, making sure we have all the underlying camel capability and OSGI capability and ActiveMQ capability you're used to and things you've worked with as a programmer. So I'm starting my service up. It's going through the provisioning process, and it looks like it's nearly done at this point. Okay? So all that happened while I was sitting there talking. We basically set up the JVM, set up the Fuse environment, got our code, custom code over there, provisioned it, and now it's ready to use. It also discovered the message broker. You can also see here I have a couple message brokers running out here. So it discovered the message brokers, and it's now ready to receive tweets. So let's actually drill down on it. And if this goes well, we can see the logs associated with that Twitter service. And then I can see, when I click the camel tab, I can actually look at what that camel route looks like. So let me go to the diagram. And so this is what it looks like. So it's reading in from the streaming API from Twitter. It's making a decision about who sent the tweet in. It's looking for certain keywords at this moment, do some logging, do some conversion and marshalling, a traditional ESB style use case. And then it's going to push it into a queue called tweets. So let me go and pump a tweet in. All right, let me get my Twitter client up. And I'm actually going to say, all right, so open, let me type correctly. It's hard typing and talking at the same time. OpenStack plus OpenShift. All right, raised to the power of JBoss XPaaS services equal awesome. All right, so that's coming in from our personal account. I'm going to hit tweet there. So it's going out to the Twitterverse. Oh, I already tweeted that. Okay, let's go. So Twitter's giving me verifying it, and if you notice, it came right in. So what happened is I sent it out to Twitter. Twitter immediately sent that back to us here on stage, and then it animates our screen in real time. You now see the 1 there. You probably missed that. Just to be on the safe side, maybe we'll send in another one. Just in case you missed that one, I have another account. So let's go with this one. I really love some OpenStack plus OpenShift. How about that? And JBoss XPaaS. And if I hit tweet there, okay, you can see we basically pushed that tweet into the system, and we have a couple other tweets already flowing into the system, so you can see them right there. We're going to start one more service, okay? So let me come back to the main Fuse console here and go to containers, and I'm going to say create, and I'm going to say I want the Salesforce service now. And again, I can stand up several of these. I'm just going to stand up one for now, and we're going to do that, and we're going to basically pick the right profile. And we're going to go through the process of creating and starting a container. Okay, so basically, as this Salesforce process goes through the same provisioning process you saw earlier, it's a Salesforce service. It, again, is a set of camel routes, a little bit of code, configuration. It's got to make sure we have the JVMs out there. It's got to make sure we take full advantage of the hardware that's available to us. OpenStack and OpenShift is provisioned for us. It's going to set that up, and we'll get it going. So what will be interesting is to see exactly if it drains that queue. So actually, I want to show you the queue. So we'll go here. So this is our message broker queue. And I forgot to show you this. I should show you that. See, there's the queue called tweets that was dynamically established. And you can see there's tweets in the system, including that first tweet that I sent in overall. So, and I've already got people retweeting it because I can see it here on my phone. So they're moving into the system now. And I'm going to come and go back there. OK. So now, I wanted to show you, talked about one more thing while that thing's starting. Kevin Connor, who's here on the right side of our stage, he's been our lead architect for this application, this demo environment, and he specifically configured all those Twitter services and Salesforce services. So Kevin, could you tell us a little bit more about what's going on with that Salesforce service?
Sure, Bo. We designed the Salesforce service in order to demonstrate how easy it is to install a resilient service on OpenStack. Now, as the demo continues, you'll see us install multiple instances of this into the gears that Chris is provisioning for us, and that will provide us with a degree of redundancy in the application. The application does a number of business tasks on our behalf. It consumes the tweets that are coming in, and it identifies those based on the criteria that the business has specified. It then persists those tweets into a database so that we can run business reports on them at a later date. It will then query a Salesforce instance. This is a live Salesforce instance that we've set up specifically for this demo, and try to ascertain whether the tweet is coming from an existing customer or not. If the tweet is coming from an existing customer, then it will retrieve information from the customer's Salesforce account, including information such as the cell phone number that we'll use later on. And finally, it will create a business process so that we can let our customer service team know that they have to go and follow up with that customer.
So if it's not clear, the Twitter API does not give us a phone number or an email address. Salesforce has that information because we're matching the Twitter ID with a Salesforce account, our little CRM system here. And so that's off and running. But I want to show you a couple of things here, Chris, while we're over here on this side of the table. So Chris, we had said you're going to bring up the third compute node. You can see that I actually have my Salesforce service running here on number 2, and things are just coming along for you?
That's right. Compute 3 is ready for you. It's got 4 slots ready, and Compute 4 is being configured right now.
All right. We're going to be looking for that, so don't disappoint us here now. So, it's a live demo. Anything could happen. But let's come back over here. I want to show you a couple of things. You can see that actually I have 17 tweets in-queued, 17 de-queued, so the Salesforce service is already consuming my tweets and then pushing them out. So we can see we have several of them running over here. But let me open this guy out real quick. And I want to show you that specific Salesforce service. And you can see it running, OK? And you can see that a bunch of tweets have already gone through the system. So somebody out there is helping us a little bit. But I want to show you this one more time, OK? Let's look at this process one more time. And I'm actually going to bring up the Camel one, all right, the Twitter. That already had that one open. But let's see here. Kind of show you this. OK, so we got 19 in the system. But when I actually do the tweet, OK? This is a test message from the live demo at Red Hat Summit. OK, so let's see if this works for us here. I have my phone here in my hand. I'm going to hit the tweet button. So watch what happens here. So the tweet goes out. And this one does have a Salesforce record. And if you notice carefully on my phone, the text message came in. So a whole lot happened there in a very short period of time. It goes out to the Twitterverse. It gets consumed here on stage in our on-stage cloud. It basically then goes to Salesforce, double checks it, hits the BPMS system, goes to Twilio, and sends the message out just like that. OK? So that's all running. Absolutely. So we got even more to show you. So some of you guys are thinking, oh, wow, you showed us a lot already. Yeah, we got more. OK? So at the end of the day, commodity hardware does not offer business value. OK? Bare metal does not offer business value. We know that already. And as developers, many of you guys are here are developers. You might be DevOps folks. You might be systems administrators. Our primary mission in life is to actually build better processes, better infrastructure, better support services for the business that sees some value. So we're going to try to raise this game even another notch, all right? We want to show you our BPMS suite. And specifically with the BPM environment, you can actually do a whole bunch of new capability that goes well beyond the Java programmer, the Ruby programmer, the Python programmer. So in other words, we don't need programmers at this level. We can involve the business analysts, as you heard from Craig and Mark. So I'm very excited to actually introduce you to a fellow over here named Luis Cortez. He's the co-founder of the Polymeta group that you might have heard of several times already. And they've had a huge impact on the open source technology that we now have within the JBPM project, rules projects, otherwise known as the BPM suite for our supported products. So Luis, could you show us some of that?
Definitely. Thank you, Barb. We've seen how Red Hat is addressing the needs of the modern application builder. So one of those roles is the business analyst. This type of role needs to go all the way from modifying process-based applications, creating data forms, even in some cases modifying data sources. With that in mind is that we have created JBoss BPM Suite, which is also at the heart of the BPM services for XPaaS. BPM Suite is one of the most advanced products in the market these days to manage the whole life cycle of process management, starting with modeling, documenting, simulation of processes, running those processes, and monitoring them. And when we think about processes, the first thing that comes to mind is modeling processes. That's why we have created and included in BPM Suite 6 an advanced process designer that is web-based and also supports BPM N2 that enables organizations to model all types of business processes. And actually, what we have modeled here for this demo is a process that is going to automate some manual interventions that we need to do with the tweets. So basically, the process starts when one tweet gets into the system through the infrastructure that we just created on the fly here. Actually, BPM sent out an SMS via Twilio that you saw how Burcell received. Then this tweet is going to be reviewed. I can decide to escalate it to my head of support, who can then decide to provide feedback or to call a customer, and then record the result of that call, and finally update the Salesforce account. Paramount to process management is not only process management itself, what we do with tasks, but also the information that goes along with the tasks that we are managing. That's why we have included a data structure creation and a form design tool within BPM Suite 6, so the business analyst roles without coding can create advanced forms, tie them into the processes, and that in that way help manage all the information that goes throughout the process. Actually, an advanced functionality that we are also including in process management is simulation, so we can see how a whole department runs processes throughout the organization. Now let's get some work done. Let's see what is happening with those tools that are generating tasks inside the process. So actually we can see here the task list. This is an advanced component that dynamically refreshes and incorporates all the different tasks that are being put into the system. We can see those as a grid, as we are seeing here, or also as a calendar view. So when we have long-running processes, such as mortgage loan application, we can schedule those tasks and work with them as they are coming with here. In this case, we're going to work more in real time. So let's take a look at some of these tweets. So let's take this tweet, for instance, here, and let's see what this person is saying here. So, well, in this case, we have a congratulations for someone that is saying it's amazing how you can build a leading edge XPaaS on commodity hardware. So actually, would like my boss actually to address this personally, so I'm going to ask for some escalation, and I'm going to complete this task. So what has happened here is not just that I pressed the button, but actually a whole number of things have been happening in the execution of the process. And actually, if we go back to the process model, we can see how we see in different colors what's the path that actually this task has followed until it was escalated to my manager. So we can now see with the context what has happened with this task before and decide with more basis what we want to do it when we go forward. Last but not least, with BPM Suite, we incorporate advanced dashboarding capabilities. So we have incorporated here advanced dashboarding capabilities coming from Polymita, and we have created a number of different indicators that are showing information that is being generated by all the activities that we have been doing in this demo. So in this case, we're showing who are the top 10 tweeters, what's the tweet evolution, so in the last few minutes, how the tweets have been coming into the system, how many processes have been created per time, and also what are the tags that are the basis for those tweets.
OK, that's pretty awesome. So one thing that maybe I wasn't particularly clear about, and I want to make sure we clarify one more time. This is an environment that basically there's no programmers involved in creating it. You didn't have to write any Python code, Ruby code, Java code to create this environment right here. Mm-hmm. And so with this dashboard, we can drill down on the data and see additional detail. And can we customize the dashboard without involving a programmer?
Well, definitely. You know, the audience may be thinking, all this information is clearly interrelated. So it would be great if we could drill down into it and get a more level of detail. So actually, if we want to get in more detail into demo app, just by clicking on the demo app portion of this graph, the system is going to drill down into this sea of information and come up to the surface with more detail about who are exactly the tweeters that are providing these demo app tweets, at what rhythm they came into the system. So we can drill down in many dimensions and cut the information and slice it in such a way that it provides valuable business insight. In addition to this, we also can customize this dashboard. And so let's say, for instance, that my boss asked me about what's the evolution of the tasks within the process. So for instance, how many tasks do we have in each step of the process? You know, in a normal business world, I will need to go to my IT department. It would take them hours, maybe days, to modify a dashboard, create a report for me so I could provide this information to my boss. In BPM Suite 6, what we do is provide easy tools to customize this dashboard. So I just deleted one of the graphs up here. So I'm going to add a new one into it. So just by clicking here, I'm going to be offered a number of different graphical components that I can drag and drop into this interface. So I'm going to drag one of them into the same area that the other graph was utilizing just a minute before. And then we're going to customize it in the same fashion that you would customize your favorite graph in your favorite spreadsheet. So here we're going to be measuring tasks. So we will show how many tasks we have for each step of the process. We're going to give a name to this graph, which is number of tasks per step here. We're going to give it the same size of the rest of graphs. And we're going to give a bit more room here. OK, so we can see easily the tags that are showing the information. So in just a few seconds, I just created a new indicator here that wasn't there before. And actually, you can see here that we have 6 tweets pending to be worked with on the first step of the process and only 1 in the second one. So actually, to a business user, this would give them an insight into possibly a bottleneck is building up in this first step of the process. So we may decide to assign more resources into processing these tweets.
And what I really love is that as a developer, I don't have to rebuild this. I get it out of the box and all that capabilities I get for free. That's awesome. So one other thing I'm curious about, though, is does this run in a mobile environment? Because after all, the average business executive business person is going to be pretty busy. Can I run it on my tablet?
Definitely. So actually, I have here the same setup running in my iPad. So we can see the same dashboard that we're seeing in the desktop. We're seeing it in the dashboard. So we can zoom in and see who are the top 10 tweeters, for instance, or what rhythm the tweets have been coming into the system in the demo. And I can do exactly the same drill down that I was doing before. So we're drilling down in the demo here and seeing at what rhythm the demo app tweets have been coming into the system. So that allows you to be as productive in the road as it would be in your desktop.
OK. Well, we kind of want to start opening this up for everybody, right? And not just the people who actually found a Salesforce record because they sent me their Twitter ID before the event. You saw that email. Now, at this point, though, I'm curious to know, can we see the people with a Salesforce record versus without a Salesforce record?
Definitely. In order to provide that, we have created an additional area here in this dashboard. So we have tweets coming from Salesforce accounts, which means that customers are sending tweets into the system, and also tweets that are coming from non-Salesforce accounts, which means that there's people that don't have an account into Salesforce. So actually, in organizations, we could have different teams to work for the customers that are complaining or saying something good about us, or for non-customers. And this would be an easy way to know how many of those we have in each of the different areas.
OK, well, fantastic. So at this point, we kind of showed you a lot of different capabilities, and perhaps we should recap it real quick and make sure we have covered all the appropriate ground. So our focus here was on XPaaS, and we leveraged the capabilities of OpenStack to build out this hardware to turn it into virtual machines, essentially. Our own little infrastructure as a service cloud right here on stage, and this is for real. You can come play with it later if you want, perhaps. But then we actually used OpenShift to carve up those little virtual machines into containers that we can then use as application services. And then we leveraged the capability of the iPaaS, right, integration and platform as a service, to distribute our services across that environment. And you can even see here, I actually have a ton of services up and running, thanks to Kevin over there, who's been standing them up for me as an example. He's been standing up those services across that backbone. And Chris, I'm curious, did we get all our servers up and running?
Everything's up and running, and Kevin's been over here creating Fuse application containers, and they have all landed on Compute 3 and Compute 4.
Awesome. You got to love it when the hardware actually comes to life and actually works. Fantastic. So we want a little help from all of you guys here in the audience. We want you to test our production system we just put in production here on stage for you right here and now. We just need a little Twitter love from you. If you just give us a pound #demo up or #demo down, think of that as a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You're going to see yourself show up here on the dashboard as well, based on your Twitter ID. If we don't find a match in Salesforce, you show up on one side of the chart. If you do have a match in Salesforce, you show up on the other side. And if you do have a match in Salesforce, you should get that text message from Twilio, assuming we have the right mobile number from you also. So at this point, you have the opportunity to actually drive traffic and transactions into our demonstration application right here on stage. So let's see how this is going so far. I want to make sure we are monitoring this environment. OK. And are you getting some stuff over in your dashboard over there?
Yes, definitely. We're starting to see some action here.
OK.
So both in Salesforce and non-Salesforce account, some tweets are starting to come in. So people with Twitter IDs such as Jeff Gus, Bevin McNamara, Zabi Al-Bizuri, Justin Davis, etc., those tweets are starting to come.
OK. And we already have 32 tweets coming into the system, so there's a number of tweets already flowing in, which is kind of exciting, kind of fun. And I'm also getting a ton of retweets for the various tweets I sent out here on my phone already. You can see a lot of that happening. So this is your opportunity really to kind of drive things in. We've certainly had a lot of fun with you guys. Hopefully you now understand what the power of the capability is here, with the elasticity, the flexibility, the ability to dynamically provision this and send it on out. So at this point, Mark, do you need something?
Yeah, I think so. This demo is going a little bit too well, so I'm going to inject some reality, and we all know that shit happens. So I'm going to disconnect this machine, no battery, take the power out. I think that's dead.
Hey, Mark,
I wish it was running Windows, but it's
Mark,
not. So.
Mark, that was Jim Whitehurst's.
Dan,
is that the wrong
one?
one?
This one from? OK,
it's definitely broken.
So we're down to 3 servers now. OK, so things are still trucking, though. So we got down to 3 servers. You can see our dashboard's still up. We still have tweets flowing into the system. And if you notice, even our Fuse Fabric has responded to say, hey, our other Twitter service is down at this point. So we'll try to get that restarted. But hopefully you guys had some fun with us here today. You saw us do a lot of crazy stuff right here live for you on stage. We had some fun with it. But really, I want you to think about and take this really home with you as you go throughout the week. By the way, a lot of these folks have a deep dive presentation on a lot of these technologies. So if you want to learn more about OpenStack and OpenShift and XPaaS, and if you attended any of the sessions yesterday with James and Rob, they drilled down on all of these capabilities. And there's a lot more of that happening now, so I want you guys to be aware of that. So make sure you check out their sessions. You're going to see even a lab with Chris later in the week if you want to actually try some of this hands-on. So at this point, I want you guys to remember one thing. Due to the power of OpenShift and OpenStack, open source and open standards, we really are driving to a whole nother level of basically developer productivity, business analyst productivity, and hopefully you guys can see we really are attempting to be a force multiplier for all of you guys here in the audience. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over back to Mike. Thank you guys very much. Mike?
All right, the inimitable Burr Sutter and the crack team here, Luis, Kevin, Chris. That was a serious virtuoso demo performance.
Thank you. I should mention, if you guys saw yourself in the top 10 over here, if you guys saw yourself in the top 5 in either category, come see us afterwards. We've got a little prize for you after all. So check out that dashboard. If you guys have got your tweet into the system, you know, by hook or by crook through that Wi-Fi, let us know, and we're going to see you afterwards. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. I love working with these guys. I mean, this is what makes me psyched to get out every day and market middleware and help drive the strategy for this. I mean, with a team like this, you know, you can't lose. This demonstration was a demonstration not only of virtuoso performance from the folks that you saw up here who worked tirelessly for weeks to conceive, build, test, and choreograph everything that you just saw here. I mean, bare metal to BPM, live before your eyes on stage. But it also is an testament to the work that both Mark's JBoss Middleware engineering team and the OpenShift engineering team have done over the last couple of months. In September, we outlined again our vision, strategy, and roadmap for XPaaS. And I'm proud to say that as of now, we have delivered on the first phase of that XPaaS roadmap. We have 4 key services up and running live today in developer preview on OpenShift. So iPaaS, BPM Pass, Mobile Pass, as well as Application Pass. And we even went beyond the original SLA internally, and we threw up Data Virtualization Pass for good measure. So we're actually one ahead. We've got an aggressive roadmap. We're executing against it throughout the rest of the year. You're going to see additional really amazing technologies come to life and really flesh out the XPaaS vision, that unified console, that consistency, that ease of use to develop enterprise-class applications in the cloud using all the great JBoss middleware that you already know and love. We've got a ton of great sessions, great speakers, lots of fun in store for you guys in the next couple of days. Encourage you to go out there, learn as much as you can, drink from the fire hose, as well as other things after the sessions. And probably most importantly, don't be boring. Don't be happy with the status quo. Go out and innovate. Have an awesome summit in Dev Nation. Thank you very much.